to remind all of you, some of you did not get to hear the message before you entered. So be sure to fill out the Qualtrics form that's in the chat. So go to your chat, fill that out for us and let us know that you attended. And then, so that way soon we can get started. So, oh, and then we will be recording. So just so all of you know. Okay, so I give it a few more minutes or seconds, I should say. So welcome again, everyone. So I just wanted to introduce all of our panelists today. So thank you all for joining. First, we have Dr. Contreras from the biology department here. So some of you will recognize her. She's brand spanking new here. So thank you for joining. And then also we have Emily Kunselman from Scripps Institute of Oceanography. So thank you for joining. And also On Lee, an alumni. Yay, alumni. So he is our pharmacy student. So thank you all for joining again. And so I did want to start off in that order with Dr. Contreras. Here's our first question. So can you please describe your experiences that led you to this point in your career, and what made you want to be in biology? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see all the virtual names. Hopefully, we get to chat a little bit during this hour. So yes, I'm a brand new assistant professor in the biology department. This is my very first semester and I'm teaching first year bio, but it's not my first year as a professor. I was actually at the University of Laverne in Laverne, close to Scripps College, for 10 years. So I was tenured there. So I have over 10 years of teaching experience and at the faculty level. And then before that, I'm actually also an alumni of Cal State San Bernardino. So I did my undergrad here, the biology department, and I stayed on and did my master's here as well. So some of the faculty who are currently here were also my faculty members. So it's actually a dream for me to be able to come and work in this department. It was always a goal of mine to be able to come back and teach specifically, always at Cal State, but specifically here in San Bernardino because of all the things that faculty did for me while I was here. They're definitely good mentors. So I did my undergrad here, my master's, and then I got my PhD at UC Irvine in comparative physiology. Before I went to the University of Arizona to do a postdoc, and then Laverne for my first tenure track position, and now Cal State San Bernardino. So I'm old. I've been around for a while and I've gathered a lot of wisdom. So please ask away because I'd love to share my experiences with you. I always say if I could get to this point, you guys could definitely reach your dreams. So yes. That's an introduction to me.
Okay, so next we have Emily. So what we can do is go through all of our panelists and then we can go back and ask questions to everybody. So thank you, Emily, for joining.
Of course. Yeah, I feel like I'm also going to learn something today from Dr. Contreras. So for me, I am a fourth year PhD student at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And I'm one of those people who decided at a very young age that marine biology was the career for me. And that kind of guided the rest of my life so far. I applied to all of the marine biology programs for undergrad, all the best looking ones. And I ended up here in San Diego for undergrad as well at UCSD. And I would say there were a few critical experiences that got me to where I am now. My major advisor when I was in undergrad suggested that I start looking for labs to work with to get some experience there. And so I just first class where there were speakers from Scripps at UCSD, I just like approached one of them, and we were like allowed to introduce them when they gave their talk. But then I of course started asking like, oh, is there any way I can like work in your lab? I'm looking for lab experience. And I started going to some lab meetings, helped a PhD student, and realized that I hated chemistry because it was a chemistry lab. So I was like, this is not for me, not at all. And then a little bit later in undergrad, I was in Seattle, Washington. I was just visiting my uncle, and I was actually introduced to someone who works at the Department of Natural Resources up there. So it was like a nice little network connection, and I bothered him numerous times about whether I could do an internship with them. And I ended up working on eelgrass and oysters, and it was very, very cool. It definitely shaped what I do now. And I came back to San Diego. It was my third year of undergrad. I started looking for other labs too while I was like actively taking classes back in San Diego. And I got paired up with a PhD student who was studying fish microbiomes. And so merging those two topics together, I actually was able to go back to Seattle and start my own project with oysters, looking at their microbiomes. So it was really nice to kind of have those like different perspectives, different research projects going on that I could merge into one, because we have this undergrad honors thesis that we can do at UCSD. And then doing all that stuff, I decided that, oh, like I really like research. I don't want to stop being a student. So I'm going to start applying to grad schools. I applied to some masters and also the PhD at Scripps. And I actually wasn't really sure that I was going to commit to a PhD or anything, but it worked out really well. There was a PI that just came from a different school to Scripps, and I matched really well with him. We had a conversation, and I was just like so excited. And the way it works here is kind of like if you have found a PI that you work well with, at least in marine bio, then they have a ton of decision power about letting you in. So your application is really important, but having the connection with somebody was also really, really critical. And so I was like, I'm just gonna do this PhD. And after like a few kind of ups and downs, really getting used to it, I absolutely love it now. I love being a student still and doing research, but the future is still very open-ended, and I'm not necessarily going to stay in academia forever. I'm really interested in industry too, but that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. That's so cool. I micro and organisms together, I just think the collaboration, endless opportunities. And so next we have On. Thank you, On, for joining.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is On. I'm kind of local to the area, so closer to Cal State. I went to community college out of high school, so I went to JP Community, and then from there I transferred to Cal State San Bernardino to finish my undergrad. But throughout my whole undergrad journey, I was given the privilege to work inside a pharmacy in an independent pharmacy in Glendora. So I was able to kind of see how like the pharmacy workflow is. Growing up, I always wanted to go somewhere in the healthcare. I didn't know if I wanted to do medical and become like go to medical school or whatnot. So I was kind of exploring my fields, and then early on in my undergraduate journey, when I got offered the position to work inside the pharmacy, it was a family-owned pharmacy, and I was a hip hop coach at the time, and so. The parents of one of my students, they were like, "You're interested in pharmacy?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know much about it. Like, I just started researching and stuff." And then she was like, "I actually just opened up a pharmacy. Why don't you come work for me?" And I was like, "I'm down. Let's do it." So I started working there at the retail pharmacy, and I worked there for about 6 years as I was going through undergrad and doing the coaching thing too. So it was super busy during that time. And then I graduated from Cal State San Bernardino with my bachelor's in biology. And then I took a gap year. Originally, I just wanted to take a year off just to kind of, work inside the pharmacy some more and dedicate more hours to it. But then COVID happened. So I ended up taking another year. And then I was like, you know what, you got to apply to pharmacy right now. It's like now or never. So I pushed myself and I applied, and I'm here at Keck Graduate Institute in Claremont, California, as part of one of the Claremont colleges. And then starting my journey here in my first year, I also applied to be their graduate assistant in their admissions office. So it's kind of cool seeing like the other side of admissions, where you get to really, interact with the faculty and staff and seeing how their process is like on admitting students. But yeah, I'm an open book too. So if you're curious about pharmacy or anything, just feel free to ask me questions.
Alrighty, thank you all for sharing. All right, so for all you students out there, this is the perfect time. Everyone start asking questions. I know I have plenty of questions too, so maybe I will go first. I know a lot of, I recognize some of the names here. A lot of you guys have that desire to go on to professional school, like on here. So I will ask, so for you how was the process with like applying to pharmacy school? Like, was it very difficult? How many schools did you feel like you needed to apply to? How did that whole process go for you?
Yeah, so we have like a portal that we use. So ours is called PharmCast, which is for the pharmacy applications. It was pretty straightforward. They walk you through all the requirements. They make sure you have all your prerequisites for the school that you're applying to. So it's up to you to kind of do that research as you're going through your undergraduate. If pharmacy is like where you want to go, or any healthcare profession, just double check with the prerequisites and make sure that you're taking the appropriate classes to meet those prerequisites. They have you submit like your transcript and all of that. So it's like any graduate program that you apply for. Usually you'll go through their portal. You submit all your coursework, your transcripts, letter of recommendations, and then depending on the school, sometimes they'll have like supplemental essays or supplemental questions that they'll ask you at the end. So you'll do that as well. And then for me, I applied to about 6 pharmacy schools. So I applied to 4 in-state and then 2 out-of-state. KGI was my second one that I interviewed for, and I liked them so much that they were like the gold standard for me. They really left a really great impression on me. And after, I still went to all my other interviews just so I could brush up on my interview skills as well. Even though I already received my offer letter from KGI, so I kind of gauged the interviews based off of my interview with KGI.
Yeah, that's a good tactic. Yeah, because it's like you get a pair, you get to choose who you want, so that's good that you made it your choice rather than the other way around. Okay, we have a question here in the chat. Victoria asks, I have a question for pharmacy school, would you recommend joining a research lab? Yeah,
and great question. We get asked that all the time, especially like working in admissions too, when I'm speaking to future applicants. It's not necessary. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not necessary, but it's not mandatory for you to have research experience inside the lab before or during pharmacy school. If anything, it's just more so for your interest. Especially if you want to like specialize as well later on, if like, let's say you want to become, you want to do a residency for oncology research, right? So obviously having those research experience will benefit you for that residency position, because you're going to have that research experience versus another student that might not have that experience. So we do have some research opportunities here at KGI. It's not much because KGI is more focused on technology and industry, but you do have those professors who are doing constant research here as well. So if there's a research area that you're interested in, I would do the research on the professor and then reach out to them to kind of get the opportunity.
Can I answer a little bit of that too? So from a faculty member's perspective, also being in panels like, for accepting students into graduate programs, I would say that research in general is a way to highlight your abilities as a scientist, and also leadership skills. So even though research might not be required as a prerequisite for you to get into a program, it could be something that makes you stand out in comparison to other applicants who may not have that particular experience. So doing research in itself will teach you a bunch of stuff. So being in the lab will teach you a lot of things that you will not get by going to classes. So that's a thumbs up for research. But the other thing that research does is that it opens up opportunities that you wouldn't have unless you were working with someone in the lab. So my students, for example, if they finish their project, can go and present at conferences. Normally I take them to national conferences. So that is something that they could put on their CV. So it looks good on their CV when they're applying to graduate programs. But also it's good because at these national conferences is where all the people that are doing research at these graduate programs will be at presenting their own research. So it's a good place to go network. If you wanted to apply to a graduate program, if you meet the person who you want to work with at this meeting and you're talking to them about the research that you did in your lab as an undergrad, that is gold. They won't forget that. So yeah, research I think is good because it'll add 2 things possibly, maybe even 3. Sometimes my students get funding to be able to do work in my lab. So that's another thing that they could put in their CV. So you get 3 different things on your CV that other people might not have. Plus you network, plus you learn a bunch of stuff. So my plug for research. So even if you don't want to be a researcher, right, it's just something that might help you, your application process. And then the other thing I want to say is about graduate programs. How many, I think you asked like how many programs and like how you picked where you went or what was it like. Yeah, so back in the day, I also applied to like many programs, and I liked what you pointed out, and was that, you know, I think as a student, when you're applying to these programs, you are like, you come in with the attitude of, oh, please, I just want someone to take me. Like, I really want to go to graduate school. I just want the opportunity, which is, you know, because you really want to, you're excited about it. But I think also something to keep in mind is that you don't want to apply to just one school because maybe it's the top school and it sounds awesome, but you get there and you realize that, you know, it's just not where you want to be. But you won't be able to experience that if you don't have multiple places that you could go visit, because then you could use that one place to say, you know, they do pretty good science, but on top of that, I really liked whatever, right? So that was the same thing for me. I applied to 9 different schools. I think I interviewed at 4 or 5. But when I went to Irvine, that was just like, that was the place for me. And, you know, I went to other schools who, you know, were whatever, more prestigious, but it honestly didn't matter. Like, I'm sorry, Irvine was the place. So that was my 2 cents on that.
Thank you. And while we're on, you know, talking with you, I had a student ask in the chat, they said, what was the first research project that you worked on that led you to continue in academia? And how did you know that path was right for you? Aimed at you, Dr. Cook. Yeah.
So my path was very interesting. So the very first project I worked on was actually in the chemistry department. So somebody else said that they were in chemistry or they did chemistry. So it's funny. So I was a biologist first. I was an undergrad as a biologist, but they wouldn't let me do research here on campus unless I had, I think, first year bio. So I went to chemistry first. And I liked it actually. So I switched my major to chemistry for a little bit. But then if you are not aware, there are research opportunities during the summer outside of Cal State San Bernardino. So usually universities that grant PhDs have summer internships or summer fellowships where, you know, you apply to them, you actually get to visit that campus, they pay for you to do the work there, you get to live there, plus you get to pick the person that you dream of working with. And why do they do this? Well, because they're trying to recruit you. So it's good for the school, but it's also good for you, because if it's a school that you really want to go to, you get to work with a faculty member who you probably want to join their lab anyway. So you get a little introduction to them and they get a little introduction to you. So after I switched my major to chemistry, I was awarded a fellowship at UCLA to go do research with an evolutionary biologist working on fish and guppies and how diet affects the different color patterns in their skin. And honestly, the whole summer, all I did was feed fish because there was thousands of fish and they had really specific diets. So it would take 3 hours for breakfast, 3 hours for lunch, and 3 hours for dinner. So as soon as I finished giving them breakfast, I had to start lunch and then I had to start dinner. And that's all I did all summer. But while I was in there, I was talking to scientists that I would have never had the opportunity to speak with if I hadn't gone. They had professional development opportunities. So I was networking. I was learning about fish and diet and evolution. And that was the project that made me realize that I could do this. First of all, that I had the ability to be in a lab and do the research. So it empowered me that way, but also that it was so cool that I completely enjoyed feeding fish all day long and asking questions about how that affected their color patterns. So that was the one for me.
Did you switch back to bio after that?
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as I came back, I was like, chemistry is cool, but I really like animals. And I have to switch back.
Okay, we have another question in the chat. This one's aimed for the entire panel. What programs or groups did you guys participate in school that helped you get into the current positions that you guys are in at the moment?
I have a very indirect one because while I was in undergrad, we have this wilderness guiding program. And so you can sign on to do it, you get trained, and then for 3 years after, you just become an assistant guide, a secondary guide, and a lead guide on these trips out to like the mountains or kayaking or whatnot. And having that experience to build like confidence in leadership, I think was really critical for me. Like especially after going into a lab, just like having agency over like things that I had to control. So it helped me get past like a lot of fears. And I think like having those experiences that are totally different from what you actually want to do in your career, so like outdoor guiding, or like I played ultimate frisbee, and then I was like really involved with just the recreation group as a whole. It really helps you build those other skills that you're not getting like all the time just working in a research lab.
All right. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I would say my first club was the chemistry club, actually. So that 1 year I was a chemist, I really went into it. But the reason why it was helpful was Dr. Mink, who's still a professor here, was the advisor. And I think he was the first person who saw potential and found opportunities for me to go outside of the university to kind of keep learning about what was out there. So getting involved in groups and organizations on campus is good for that reason, that you get to know your professors from a different perspective and they'll remember you. So if opportunities come up, now they know that you might benefit from those opportunities. So yeah, being part of campus clubs and organizations, I think help in that way. And just to give you a plug, SACNAS, the Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in the Sciences, it's a very long title, is a really good undergraduate organization, national organization to be a part of. So it's not just for Chicanos and it's not just for Native Americans, because I'm neither. And I wasn't a part of it as an undergraduate, unfortunately, but I did start getting involved in it as a postdoc, early career. And now I've been advisor at ULV. I was advisor for 10 years. And we are just revamping a chapter here at Cal State San Bernardino. So if you're interested in learning more about SACNAS, you can always send me a message or Google SACNAS CSUSB, but you could contact me. So that's another one. And then I would say as I went into graduate school and postdoc, then there were society, like professional societies that you could become a part of. So I'm trained as a physiologist, like I said. So the American Physiological Society is, an organization that really, really pushed me and helped me through my PhD program. So for my program, if you, I didn't have to pay for tuition because I taught during that period. So I would teach labs, which is cool because I learned how to teach, but teaching takes a lot of time. And so if I wanted to finish in a timely manner and I had to teach at the same time, it becomes a little bit difficult. So the society had different graduate fellowships that allowed me to not have to teach every year or every semester so that I could focus on the work that I needed to complete. So that's how I got introduced to the society. But then as I became a postdoc and early career, there was all sorts of different opportunities that were available through the society. So I think that is an awesome question, because I think it's something to keep in mind, right? You might need, no, not might, you will need extra help outside of your classes to keep you moving forward. And there's all of these support systems already in place. So if you don't know, like, what are some opportunities, who you should contact, you know, at different stages in your career, that's why we're all here, because you will need it. I mean, I'm faculty for whatever years, 15 years, 10, 15 years. And I still need those support systems. I'm still plugging into my society and talking to my mentors. So that is a really excellent question. You should reach out and find those clubs and organizations.
Yeah, and I'll just add on that too, that being, you know, when I was an undergrad with the bio department, I just would talk to the professors, and all the professors like just love to help. They love to help and talk with the students. So, you know, don't shy away from talking with them, because, you know, that's how I ended up being here as an advisor and as a grad student with the bio department, because everyone in the bio department knows me. So it's like, you know, I didn't feel like I was the best student, and I was able to still get into research, and it doesn't matter, you know, and then they'll plug in all the opportunities for you. I was also able to go to Seattle and do research during the summer, and that's always really great, you know, to go outside, especially if all of you are from Southern California or in San Bernardino. I've never gone out of San Bernardino before, and then here I am doing other things. So it's just, you know, it really helps broaden everything when you get connected with people. And then there is another question for everyone in the panel again. What would you recommend to help your applications for internships or research opportunities if your resume isn't as strong and you have only minimal experience in the field of interest?
Yeah, and then I can answer this one. So I know for pharmacy, it's not required that you have experience before going into pharmacy school, because a lot of my peers, you know, they enter pharmacy school without the experience. But it's just like the research experience where it's like, if you have it, it's only going to benefit you, right? So of course you want to be a strong applicant. You want to be well-rounded. So, you know, if you have the opportunity to, for example, if you're interested in pharmacy school, go get a tech position at a pharmacy, or get a pharmacy clerk experience if you don't want to get your tech license. It's just any experience in healthcare will benefit you to be able to apply for pharmacy school. And like I said, if you truly don't have time, it's not going to hurt you. You know, they want to look to see that you are well-rounded, that you're in. It's not just about getting good grades, because I didn't have good grades either during undergrad, but I'm so, you know, I was so involved with extracurriculars, with the coaching and dancing, and that teaches you other life skills that you otherwise wouldn't get otherwise. So, you know, they just want to see that, you know, you have experience in these different fields of life, and that you're, you know, you're a well-rounded student. So for me, so if you can get involved, get involved. Like, highly recommend, you know, I think Dr. Contreras mentioned the clubs and organizations. Right now I'm in school, and, you know, I've joined a few professional organizations on campus. I'm actually the president-elect for NCODA, which is our oncology organization, and we're the KGI chapter. So next year I'll be the president of the organization. So, you know, trying to learn everything, and teaches you a lot of leadership skills as well.
I also saw a cool thread on Twitter recently, science Twitter, recommend getting one. And this girl said that when she was applying for like internships, fellowships, all that, when she really saw a significant change in like getting all these fellowships and internships was when she changed how much time she put, how much effort she put into her letters of recommendation from people. So when I say like her effort, I mean that she said she went to the application and she took like keywords, buzzwords that they wanted to see in the applicants. And then she like divided them amongst letter writers, or if it was just one, put all those words together and then figure out what experiences you actually do have that maybe are not necessarily in the field, but that show that you're ready to apply skills, like you're a fast learner or you're like a really good leader, and have your letter writer write those things in your letter of recommendation. She said that it changed like everything, and I feel like that's probably very true. Just making sure that you are like, you're giving the application what it's asking for in general, and that's one way to do it.
Yeah, I would say that obviously you're not meant to be an expert when you're applying to these programs, because that's why you're applying to these programs. So I don't think anybody is looking to see that you could basically just walk in and get your degree without learning, you know. But I think what is being measured is your ability to start and the program, right? Because giving you the opportunity to come in means that they might have to take the opportunity away from somebody else. So they want to be able to offer this opportunity to someone who shows they have the ability to complete the program, be successful with it, you know, and then keep going. So I think anything that you could do that would highlight your ability to do that is a thumbs up, right? So whether you are president of a club, right? If you are going to school and you're doing your best, so you have to have a minimum GPA to be able to apply. So if you're doing that, but you're also teaching dance classes and being president of this, and you know, just show that you're well-rounded and you could still be responsible and show up. I think that's what people are looking for. And then yes, the writing of letters, that's actually really important. I sometimes get, you know, students requesting a letter from me because they were in one class, and you know, I'm sometimes I just have to look and remember what class it was, but then I can't write a really strong letter for that person because all I know is, you know, my grade book, what's left over from my grade book about them. So I think not only, like Emily was saying, not only does it help that you take the time to think about where this letter is going to go and what needs to be highlighted to be successful there. I think it's also important for you to reach out to those people who are going to write letters and connect with them before you need the letter in a way that, you know, they really get to know you, and then they could speak about your strengths in that letter, which means also kind of knowing like who you're going to have do that, like who you're going to ask to do that with, because you won't have the time to go meet everybody, right? So I think, I don't know, about a year before you apply, I think it's really good to just sit down and start making plans in your head about, okay, what is in general the program I'm interested? What kind of experiences do I have? Kind of what's my story, so I could define that in my personal statement. But then also, who do I need to reach out to who I know will write me a good letter because they know me, right? So they could write a strong letter. I think all that helps.
Thank you all. So any more questions? If not, I have some questions I can ask. So one of the questions we have here, what skills do you believe you were not emphasized enough when you were a college student that you believe are important that you need today?
I would say writing. in all walks of life, basically. Because when I started grad school, I was basically just like a nervous writer. I was like always very scared of the next thing that I would have to write. And I had like all of these humanities courses in undergrad, and I was like, I'm really bad at that, so I'm not a good writer. But I did this like writing workshop that my school has, and I did one that was like every day for a week, so it's like 5 days straight. And they helped us kind of learn like good habits for writing. So just writing more frequently and not just like making it this big terrible thing that you have to do eventually, but like every day just writing something, anything like for 30 minutes. And then also like reading scientific papers, so it kind of like goes hand in hand, the writing and the reading, like summarizing what you're reading, being able to like communicate that again. So I would say like writing maybe was just not emphasized quite enough, like in terms of scientific writing. And that kind of communication is really important for many different things, applications, proposals, and actually like papers, that manuscripts that you're submitting.
Yeah, and I have to agree with Emily, because I feel like for me, the skill that I learned the most through graduate school so far is presentation. So just being able to stand up in front of a group of people or your professors, and being able to introduce your topic and just talk about it. I think in undergrad, it's not really emphasized as much, unless you're a communication major, or but I know in science and stuff, unless you're doing research already, then you kind of already have those presentation skills. But for the majority of the science students, I think that's one of the skills that we definitely need to brush up on. And it's something that's not only for school, but it's for life, like when you go into your career, you have to learn how to be able to give presentations and talk in front of large groups of people.
I would say for me, it would be networking. I think the general sense of a scientist is like this really weird person in a corner, like working on things late into the night, which totally happens. I would say I've spent many a nights by myself being weird in a corner with all my insects. But science doesn't happen in a box, right? When we go into classes, we learn about this one topic and then this other topic. But when you're actually doing science, all this stuff connects. So, being able to go down the hall and talk to a chemist about a certain problem, or a physicist, or maybe just my neighbor, another biologist, about these things I'm saying, only helps science improve and get better. And then if we could branch out even more out of the sciences and go talk to someone in the humanities or history or Latino studies, right? Then we're really making those changes that we want to make as professionals. So I think for me, it would be networking. I don't think that was emphasized at all when I was a student. Like, how do you go out and make science friends? Just friends in general. And especially now, I feel with COVID, right? We've all been stuck at home, not even engaging with the normal people we talk to. I think that maybe that's a skill now as students that you should really be proactive about, so that you learn how to go into a professional setting and be able to make those connections. Because like another thing, that it's not just important for your transition from undergrad to graduate school, so you find a graduate program or a job, but even when you're in that job, many years into it, you will need other people to collaborate with and talk to. So it's a skill that you'll need forever.
Yeah, definitely all three of those things that you guys mentioned. I was lucky enough as an undergrad to get a touch on it when I was doing research. I got to go to a conference, present, so all of it, and it's very cool when you do meet people, in the science community. That's how I met Emily. I met her at a conference. So it's very exciting, being able to network and everything. Okay, so next question. What was the best piece of advice you've ever received? Very broad, but yeah.
Okay, I'll go. As cliche as it is, the best piece of advice I ever got was to just be you. And I know that sounds so cliche, right? And everybody tells you like, oh, always be you, always be you. But in such a professional like setting or program, whichever one you may go to, just being genuine and just being honest and true to yourself can get you so far in life. And that's what people look for, employers, people, professors who want to onboard you to their research and stuff like that. As long as they see that you have a passion and you're genuine, that's going to take you so far in life. And I think if I constantly have to remind myself too, is this really what I want to do? If this is what I want to go, and as long as at the end of the day, like this is where your path, and this is the path that you chose, and you have a passion for it, you'll get far. So.
This was actually not even related to like in science. It was just a friend who was talking to me about this book that she read, and she was like, oh, they say that when you're in your 20s, you take everything so personally, and like any feedback you get, you just like really take it to heart, and you think that it's like about you. And so my piece of advice is kind of this like, don't take anything personally, really. So when you're in school and you get feedback, you get grades and stuff. When you're in grad school, your advisor is going to give you feedback, and they're going to tell you things to do. And the key is not to ever take anything as an attack on yourself, but to take it as like oh, this didn't work. So like, what can I do now to improve it? And I think that will help with a lot of like the mental health concerns that people kind of have in grad school. Is this will help with that a lot.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I absolutely love those two. So I'm going to add on and then I'm going to tell you mine. So the first one being you, right? Yes. Yes to all that you said. But on top of that is that if you are you, then you're part of the change, right? So I don't know. I'm all about like changing the status quo at the moment. Because, so far in my training, it's been about like, how do I get in there? And now that I'm here, it's about, well, how do I open it up for other people to be able to be where I'm at? And I think that the way that we could all do that collectively is exactly you being you, right? Because you coming in with your own thoughts and your own ideas and ways of thinking and solving problems will only make this better, and it'll change it. You don't want to come in as somebody else, right? Because then everything will stay the same. So I wanted to add on to your story because that is awesome. And then the other thing about not taking things personally, for sure. Like, I think the whole thing too about grad school is growing thick skin for me. That was it. I took things way too personally. There's a lot of crying, a lot of stuff. And it would have been so much better if I would have just taken it as, hey, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Of course, I'm not coming in as an expert. Like that's why I'm here. They're just giving me advice on how to get better. So that's a good one too. It will save you a lot of heartache. And so the piece of advice that I think I've gotten is, because I was trying to make it into this field that is super competitive, there wasn't a lot of guidance for me. I was a first generation student. I really have pushed myself a lot. So a lot of anxiety, mental health issues, right? Because it was so hard to get here. And my postdoc advisor, I think right before I left for my first faculty position, said, sometimes you just gotta let things go. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. And so that, I think, has been a good piece of advice for me, is that as you continue down this path, you're going to get a lot of guidance of, you should be doing this, or maybe you should tweak it this way, or maybe you should, and it's good advice, right? You need to hear it so you can learn. But also the other piece, right? You need to be you. And at some point, if it's good enough for you, then you just have to let it go and move forward to the next thing, or else you're just going to get stuck and fixated here and never be able to move forward. So that's my piece of advice.
Thank you all. Those all great advice. And being, you know, someone who's been in the department for some time, I have a lot of friends who are in the grad program. So I definitely have seen that, like the change from all of them, like getting beaten down and then building themselves back up. And so yeah, it's great advice. And then being me, this is my first semester as a grad student. So, you know, I'm also taking this all to heart. Okay, another question before we close off. I just think we can fit another question in. So let me find a good one. Unless any of you have questions, then please. Okay, we do have a question in the chat. Let's check it out. How can we reach out to the panel for future questions? So I actually, if all of you guys can give me your information to connect with everyone, I'd very much appreciate it. So I can connect back with you guys, with all you students out there. And then
I'm sorry, do you want me to I could put my contact info on the chat? Is that appropriate? Is that okay? Or
yeah, you can do that.
So I'll put my email.
Yeah, and then with Dr. Contreras, because she's faculty, you guys can always look her up on the biology department website. She's there. And you guys can always reach out to me as well. I have the connections.
I put my email in there too. I said, I'm always down for conversation. Please do not hesitate to contact me. I love just talking to people. It's the way that I always re-inspire myself. So
yeah, and same here. My information is there as well. Feel free to reach out to me. It doesn't have to be about pharmacy. It could be about anything, you know, just like Emily, you know, like I'm here, so use me as a resource.
Thank you guys. And very last question. So do you have any advice to give to students on how to stay motivated?
Yeah, so my biggest piece of advice is to take time to, you know, take care of yourself. I know we brushed on like mental health for, you know, earlier, but actually going through pharmacy school for me personally and going through a graduate program, it's a lot. It's a lot. You know, it requires a lot of your time. It's a lot of coursework, a lot of studying, late nights, no sleep, you know, like Dr. Contreras says sometimes, you know, you're sitting in the corner, you know, you have your mental breakdowns here and there, but you know, it's all worth it, right? Because you're doing it for your passion, for your career. So, you know, but at the same time, it gets so busy with life and school that we forget to take care of ourselves. So at the end of the day, just make sure you make time for yourself, even if it's just like 30 minutes a day to do what you like to do, whether it's to read, to draw, to dance, to you know, to go walk your dog. Like it's just those little things in life that makes it worthwhile, you know, and it makes it easier. As long as your mental health is good and you're in the right headspace, you can do anything. So take the time, you know, dedicate a day out of the month to go hang out with your family, go hang out with your friends, or, you know, or even treat yourself out to like a movie date by yourself if you have to, you know, do something. Just do something for your mental health. I think that's my biggest piece of advice.
Thank you, On. From any of the other panelists? Some advice? I will add, I do take time to knit for myself. Knitting is great escape. It's so fun. So yeah, if you guys have hobbies like that, if you know, for that time to just recuperate, you know, that's great advice, On. Thank you.
yeah, so many of my friends knit. Very popular thing. I also was gonna say exactly what On said, like basically like work-life balance in a nutshell is critical, but also sometimes if I'm feeling like I'm doing all the activities that I want to do, I have a lot of personal time, and then the next day I come into work and I'm still just feeling like unmotivated. I think that the thing that helps me a lot is if I have the opportunity to speak to somebody about my research, or even hear about their research. So just whether it's like attending a seminar or having like a little journal club, just like talking to somebody else in your lab or somebody that you know who's also in science and saying like, oh yeah, this is what I do, this is what I'm hoping to do someday, that will like just start coming out, and then you'll realize like, oh yeah, that's why I really like doing this. And sometimes just the response you get from people also will just give you a lot of like positive feedback, and they're like, oh wow, really, like how do you do that, this is really cool. And then you start to feel like, okay, yeah, now I'm really motivated again. This is why I do what I do. So I think that's one way I stay motivated.
And I was going to say for me is, well, first I want to say, I always have to connect it to you guys. Okay, so first I want to say, when I went to graduate school, I was surprised that faculty there, I mean, they were doing awesome things in the lab, but they had like these strong hobbies and things they did outside too, which amazing things. Like one faculty member was a pilot, like he went to learn how to fly, and then he would fly students, like graduate students, to conferences. Another professor had a winery, like up north. So that was kind of amazing to me, right? The idea of work hard for sure, but also play hard. And for them, you know, having something specific already in place, right? That was the thing that they were going to go do, like go make wine, I guess, and sell it or go flying. So in grad school, I ended up joining a salsa group. So Liz Lira is like the national champion in salsa dancing, and I joined her dance group. So that's what I did. But it was so fun. And it would take me out of my regular thing, right? So during the day, I was like worrying about whatever in science. And then at night, I would go practice and I would be salsa dancing. So that hip hop dancing that you were doing, right? Like, I don't know, it's just completely different worlds. And I got to talk to people about something completely different. They did not care about my cockroaches and what they ate, right? So that was not even a topic that I was covering at night. At night, it was something different. And for me, that was great. You know, it just gave me a chance to be the rest of the person that I was besides a scientist. And so that really helped me through. So I would say that. Shoot, I forgot the other thing I was going to say because I focused on that. Oh, well. Yes, go be salsa dancers. I forgot the other thing, but find a hobby. Definitely take care of yourself.
Thank you all. You guys are all such a delight. I really appreciate your participation today. And the flying thing had me dying. So yeah, you know, find what you want to do and your passions, and yeah, like you said, Emily, work-life balance. So thank you all for joining. Again, for you guys in the part of the Science Success Center, you can get credit for your event this semester. So thank you for joining. And everyone have a beautiful day.
Do you want us to stay for anything afterwards?
No, it's okay. You guys can skedaddle too if you want.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Dr.
Have a
Cherry.
good rest of your day.
Bye, everyone. It's nice meeting you.
Bye.
Bye, Betty.
Bye.
See you later.
Okay. So I know Caitlin and Francine are having a conversation right now because I can hear them. But Casey, do you need help signing in or anything like that? Do you have any questions? Casey, are you with us? Okay, I'm gonna assume that maybe she stepped out, but I'll go ahead and add so I typically after each event I'll go ahead and pull the participation data and I'll send it to Francine and I'll CC you in that. Yep.
Are we still recording? Yeah, huh?
Yeah, I'll go ahead.